Welcome to the DingeCast. We are driven by a passion for discovery and the belief that history should be uncovered. Our mission is to reveal the hidden realities of the past to bring history into the light. Welcome to the DingeCast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, monkeys and reptiles, we are into the after show, the DingeCast after show with Dr. Tiffany Bannworth, an amazing person who has incredible insight and a tremendous grasp of history. And I don't even know where to begin from here. I mean, I did want to ask you about I believe it's Akhenaten who had the big elongated
Oh,
skull and
yes.
the strange features of some of these. You know, he was the one who initiated the sun god worship, the
Right.
monotheistic. So jump into that.
Well, there's different attributes of it. Some people believe that he may have put stuff manually on his head, just like how in Africa they elongate the necks, and that
Right.
there were certain rituals that he and the followers of monotheistic followers of Aten were looking to exemplify, because
Yeah.
that elongated skull also is like Aten, which remember Aten is the sun god who has the outraised hands reaching out to, reach and grab you.
Right.
But also, there's a lot of inbreeding going on at the time as well,
Mm.
which King Tutankhaten, was his birth name, he who's now Tut. I can't stand when people say Tutankhamen, just as a sidebar, because it's either there's two. He had three different names: Tutankhaten, Tutankhamun, and Tutankhamen, and he was with his half sister, so he had two babies that died because of the inbreeding. So it
Mm.
could be because he was very misshapen as well. But I wonder why it is so unusual with this particular lineage that is worshiping Aten. I wonder if there is some sort of, and I don't know. This is just all, you know, just a thinking. If there was some sort of ritualistic um, behaviors, that
Mm.
ritualistic actions that they would do to worship Aten that would make them physically look different. And it does make sense because, like I said, Aten is um, hands reaching out from the sun, pulling you to the sun, and the head is elongated as well. But I don't know anything that I would say would be
Well, I
concrete
mean,
evidence one way or
i-
the other.
if you watch programs like Ancient Aliens, they talk about, hybrids and interbreeding between this thing and that and humans. And
Yeah, the
any thoughts
Nephilim.
on that?
I definitely believe in the biblical account of the Nephilim, where the Watcher angels were coming down and um, mixing DNA. And not only that, if you look into the other books outside the Bible, like the Book of the Giants and whatnot, and the Book of Enoch, it talks about how they looked like they wanted to play God and they wanted to genetically make chimeras and stuff like that. But the thing about it is that most of the time the Nephilim were looked at more as giants, like stronger, whereas Akhenaten and King Tut were almost like weaker forms of it. But do you know what's interesting, which I know that you're the expert on this because you wrote a book about this as well. But um, so here's my thing about the Nephilim is I believe that when sin entered the world and God had known before the foundation of the earth that he would have to send his son to free us from original sin with his son on the cross. Well, you can't have a pure scapegoat. You can't have a pure Lamb of God if it's accidentally intermingled with demon
Right.
blood,
Yep.
which is why immediately it's not. I don't believe that the Watcher angels were just so enamored of humans that they had to come down and make love with all the earth women, as much as it was a conscientious strike force of we are going to pollute the bloodline so that we are going to delay or or possibly maybe in their mind they still think that they may win the the Christ child ever being born. So the flood talks about how Noah and his three sons were the only people on earth who did not have the demon
Right.
blood in them
Right.
anymore.
Right.
However, we still see a giant afterwards with David and Goliath. So, what is believed is that God told Noah that if he was obedient, that he and the wives would be able to make it out of there. And I believe, and I think and other people, professionals in the field, believe that there was Nephilim blood in one of the wives. And
Mm.
he, because they accepted the one true God, and I forgot which one, they know which one it was. I think it's, is it Ham? I don't know, but in the there it's one of them where they knew it, and she's able to get on the ark and to survive. And it says, do not, there was a warning that said, do not repopulate with her bloodline. Let her, and if they already had children, which I don't think they did, just live out their line and do not repopulate with their bloodline. And they ignored it and did what they wanted
Ooh.
anyway. And that's why there was still the blood that was propagated all the way to, Goliath and whatnot, and probably still today. But it makes you wonder if maybe that kind of bloodline kind of dripped down into Akhenaten's reign. But the thing is like I said, Goliath was a warrior, was bigger, he was stronger, whereas Akhenaten and Tut were weaker, and he was walking with he had walking sticks. King Tut had like tons of walking sticks put in his tomb because they thought in the afterlife he wouldn't be able to amble around properly.
Mm.
So that's what makes me wonder about that type of thing, because it's always seen not in the positive in the spiritual realm, but it's always the Nephilim blood has always made the people, the receivers, stronger,
So
giants.
when you talk about the chimeras, are you thinking, and I've this has always been an interesting question to me about the whether or not these fallen ones brought technologies with them
Oh
that
yes.
enable, right?
It says
Okay,
they taught, it says in the Book of Giants that they taught sacred geometry and all of
right.
these, like, and not only that, but like black magic and like all of these, like, extremely, like, the secrets of the universe that they weren't supposed to.
Alchemy,
Yes. And that
yes.
they were learning it from their fathers, it said, for
Yeah,
sure. And that it was
yeah.
not supposed to hit mankind. And they just broke all the rules. And I also think that they made a bunch of, I almost wonder if all of the animals, the ancient animals of yesteryear that they talk about, that we all
Yeah.
think is, just mythology, it in the Book of Giants, it talks about how they were trying to play God, trying to create life. So they were genetically engineering, which is, you think about the genetic engineering of the Nephilim, and then you also think about how a lot of people, if you're going to talk about antediluvian archaeology, so before the flood archaeology, it always leads
Right.
to Atlantis, which a lot of people believe is in regards to Egypt, or in that era of the Fertile Crescent region. But like, if you look at the gods of ancient Egypt, they're all hybrids of animals and humans,
Right.
which is very interesting
I mean,
because
we're
it's,
talking like the Minotaur, like half man, half horse,
yeah.
right?
And then yeah, in
I have
Greece mythology,
often thought this was a real thing.
I think so too. And I
Yeah.
wonder if the gods that of ancient Egypt that were incredibly able to demonstrably do magic and move
Yeah.
stuff
Right.
are either the familiar spirits, the Nephilim, that
Yeah.
are still possibly wandering around, or just the cast out angels that are
So
Moloch,
Mulch.
all
Right,
of
Yeah.
it,
right.
Hmm.
it's all animal attributed gods who they actually, were sacrificing their babies to. They were,
Well, if
the
these were rebel
construct.
spirits, of course they're going to come down and contaminate.
Yeah,
They're going to try to rearrange and create a reality that is more conducive to their, to whatever they are. And then the other question goes to, because we I just saw something today on these stargates, but again, dimensional travelers, I think much more let's just say advanced to be able to dimensionally travel than it is to travel through time and space. Your thoughts on
have
that?
you read the CERN website lately?
Oh my gosh. That's some
CERN is
crazy
talking
stuff. Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
yeah, they say that they're trying to pull stuff out and push stuff in
Yeah.
through interdimensional portals.
Right.
Like, not sci-fi, and we're not talking science fiction. Like, this is what they do on a regular basis. There's also, like, I don't know what my feelings are about this, but they talk about how the throne of Satan is in Revelations. They say it's where the faithful martyr Antipas was martyred, which, as far as I was concerned, was Turkey. But ancient Turkey is that some when I re-Google it, I don't know why. So I'll Google it because I was always taught since I was a child it was in Turkey. Satan's throne was in Turkey. That's where Antipas was martyred.
Mm.
And now you re-Google it, you put it in, and it says it's coming up Geneva, Switzerland, which is where CERN is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's weird. So I don't know because the ancient Roman Empire was not just the Italian boot; it was all over the joint. So maybe ancient
Right.
Turkey, Constantinople, Byzantine Empire type of you know shenanigan may have tiptoed into modern day Switzerland. But you look at the weirdness of the Egyptian or not Egyptian, ancient Indian deities
Yeah, the
of
Hindus. Yeah.
destruction, the
Hmm.
Hindu deities that
Yeah.
they happen to have at CERN and the
Well, it's
type
the
of
Kali. It's the god of creation and destruction.
yeah, and that's what they're trying to do. And they're
Yeah.
trying to open up portals. So
Yeah.
it's these stargates aren't even, and then you talk about how you're looking into what is the word I want? The the quantum entanglement, where you
Right.
have two atoms that anywhere in the universe, if they're quantum entangled, will
Right.
replicate the same thing. And we parse all these things together with quantum physics, and we are absolutely heading towards a stargate. But not only that, but you look at things like the hyperspace theory, the superstring theory. Hyperspace talks about how ripple in the fifth dimension is light and stuff like that. Where if you are starting to be able to tap into interdimensionality, you will find things that we are not at the mental capacity to
Yeah.
contain.
Yep.
Either way. So why mess with it? But
Yeah. This
yeah.
is the subject of my new book called Source Code.
Oh.
Yeah, and because light is the source code for everything.
Oh yeah.
And
It's the speed of time as well.
absolutely.
It used to
Yeah.
be there's two things so far that break the E equals MC squared. It's the what do you say? The actuality of electrons, where when they're spinning and then the other one immediately on a quantum level, it is immediate that they start to interlock into actualization.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with gravitons with gravity. And the idea is that on a molecular level that we don't know how long it takes the electrons and gravitons to respond. So a message which is a data packet, is getting through between these electrons or gravitons that goes the speed of light or faster,
Yeah.
and it breaks E equals mc squared.
Yeah. Well, see, there's an interesting. Uh, we played a clip of a guy that I discovered on the internet, but he was saying that there's no distance between yesterday, today, and tomorrow. There's no timeline where time travels on a line between yesterday, now, and tomorrow. Those things are all combined. They're all accessible in the now moment. And so the idea of the quantum entanglement is basically that represented. It
Yeah,
represents timelessness.
yeah. I wonder about that because so if you go the speed of light, you're in a perpetual moment where time doesn't pass, time freezes for you. If you go faster than the speed of light, you go into the past. And if you are, see, we are on a rock plummeting through space, so we're not standing still. But the stiller you stand, the faster time races past you, which goes to the age old. If you are in outer space and your twin brother stays in outer space and just
Right.
floats there and you go back, your brothers could be much younger when he comes back type of concept because
Yeah.
time has rushed past him. So it makes you wonder because I often think because I have this concept that I think about often where I think that maybe the universe is not um infinite in the idea of what we think of as infinite, but it is more of like what they call a Gordian knot, where it's like interdimensionality and a big knot, kind of like those bouncy balls that have the things going, and that each of the strips is like a Mobius strip where it
Mm,
infinitely goes around, but
right.
it's like a finite packet that seems infinite to the observer. And I
Well,
wonder,
see, in this realm that we're discussing, anything is possible,
yeah, and you can
right?
back up to time. And with the Mobius strip, you could, especially with wormholes,
Circle
end
back.
up in
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
and yeah, in the space
Right.
continuum. So yeah,
Yeah.
it checks out. what you're saying checks out, I feel like. It depends on the language of the speaker as well. Do you know that it talks about cannibalism in the Bible? It says that Noah was able, when he got off the boat, to eat whatever meat he wanted, just not human meat. But I mean, like it was obviously a thing back then. And then you
Back.
imagine Baal. I say Baal when I do
Yeah.
it. His what was his wife's name? It started with an A. Ashurpal. They had Ashurpal, which is supposed to be the co-regent or wife of Baal, also is they used to decorate trees like we decorate Christmas trees to worship as well with Baal. And so there's a lot of not only does Christmas possibly tie back to Saturnalia and stuff like that, but I do wonder because it seems like this is what's weird about, and more to your point, not necessarily about cannibalism, but like people, there always seems to be child sacrifice in all of these ancient gods. You know, like that's the common denominator. And that was
Mhm.
supposed to be the differentiating point about why the Judeo God did not do child sacrifice, which is why Abraham, so the sacrifice of possibly, sacrificing Isaac on the altar is so like out of this world because it was like you were supposed to be the one God who doesn't require the
Mhm.
son to be
Right.
let down, but it's like a foreshadowing of God the Father putting God the Son on the altar to sacrifice for us. And he had to see if he was going to start his lineage through Abraham. A lot of people think he was going to start the lineage through his father, Terah, but Terah kind of like got lost in the sauce when he was supposed to make his way because they always go through all the lineages and he was supposed to, and they did it for Terah first, and he was supposed to make it to Canaan, but he didn't because his son died. And then he just kind of stayed in a city that's named after his son who passed away. So I don't know if they named him that because his son passed away there and he just lived there, or if like he couldn't get past it because the name of the city was after his son who passed away. But the commonality is that all of the ancient deities that wanted worship, always it was always some sort of blood sacrifice via a human. You know, you sacrifice the babies, you sacrifice the virgins, you sacrifice whatever. I mean, even in Mesoamerica, there was some of that going on, not within the Fertile Crescent at all. Well, there had to be a blood sacrifice, even in Judaism, too, which was the blood sacrifice until Jesus was the final sacrifice, was the slaughtering of your best goat or lamb to put on the altar and sacrifice. But the idea was it was to pay the penalty for humans, not to sacrifice the humans themselves.
Yeah.
So it goes against kind of the concepts that Jesus, when he walked the earth, said that the greatest love is to lay down your life for a friend,
Mm.
goes in the opposite direction of the false deities or the pagan gods that are saying, go find your friend and sacrifice him to get yourself ahead. You know what I mean? And it is what's weird, like I said, is that it all aligns. It's almost like there's the same person behind the same, not person, the same deity or entity that is behind all of it that is saying, do the opposite. We need human sacrifice. We need torture. We need
Yeah.
babies being sacrificed, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they also used to get rid of disabled
Yeah.
babies too. They just
Yeah.
leave them on the mountain to starve. So, you talk about that being brutish as well. So I don't know. Again, the thing is that you can't look at the past through the lens of modern eyes because obviously everything in the ancient days is brutality. Just in the same concept, concurrently right now, you can't look at the life of farmer and hunters that obviously slaughter their own animals humanely, and compare it to people who only go to the supermarket who would be just disgusted if they ever saw an animal
Yeah.
skinned. They wouldn't feed themselves anymore. So, but the idea is as you say, there was definitely, I mean, you talk about brutishness. I mean, look at the persecution. We're talking AD, the persecution of the Christian church by the Holy Roman Empire. Not even, yeah, it was before Constantine, where they were lighting the streets, Nero was lighting the streets of Rome by dipping them in the Christians in tar, putting them on a stake,
Oh, so
or
gnarly.
feeding them,
Yeah.
to the gladiators or not the gladiators, to the animals and, all the wars and fights that the people would just cheer, and this bloodthirstiness was accepted and exciting, and everybody wanted to go see the latest group of Christians that were getting just
Yeah.
ripped apart, or they would vote, you know. Oh, I did want to say something about while we're still talking about weird goreness. So, you know how we were talking about how possibly Thutmose II was you know, or one of the Thutmose people were experiencing the plagues. They have mummies where they feel like they found boils or some sort of skin sores on not only in the Thutmose family line, but also the servants that had weird scarring that are buried with them. And I'm just going to say it. There is some historical fact that says that the magicians at the time were telling the pharaohs to go into the Egyptian camps to get a baby, and they would torture the baby to adrenalize the blood, and then the pharaoh would put the blood on the boils so that it wouldn't be as painful, and it would try to heal it. And they did that for 3 days, one baby a day. So, you know, talk about some weird gore and lore, and child sacrifice. It seems to be the commonality in paganism.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I hear that the numbers are up in these days.
yeah, for sure. You know what's weird? It's like I almost feel like people are trying to put a nice bow tie on not only like paganism, but like Luciferianism, as
Yeah,
though it's like
totally.
we're just going to frolic in the field with Lucifer
Yeah.
and everything's cool. And then you get to where you hear the stories of the last minute of these, you know, Satan worshipers and Anton LaVey and all those
Oh,
people.
yeah.
And they're like, there's something very wrong here. The flames.
That's what
you
he
know?
said. He said that on his
Yeah.
deathbed.
Yeah. And they
Something is
think they're
wrong.
promised a party, you
Yeah.
know, and then like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Can you believe it that Satan is the father of lies and that he may possibly lie to his followers? I can't believe it.
Wow. Shocking.
I know, right? But that's the thing is that like nobody wants to be remembered badly.
No.
And that's what's unusual about like currently when we're talking about like the modern histories, like, you know, anti-racism type situation, is that like you would imagine that anything that was true that made us look bad, you don't want to erase that. You want to say, hey, let's learn from this
Yeah.
and never do it again. We don't want to align from it.
Yes.
But instead, we're
Absolutely.
like destroying the statues and we're like never speaking their name again. Which, if I were an incredibly bad person who did horrible things, I would like hope that that we would never talk about it again. You know,
Yeah.
so I think we should be doing the opposite. It's like you should be talking about.
Well, I mean, you're making a great point because the people who have rioted over the last several years have torn down these war memorials, and as if to say, well, these people are so bad. But again, you know, they could have a guided tour of the very bad people,
Yeah.
but they don't. They just tear them down somehow as if that's some kind of victory over them, which is insane.
Yeah, it just goes into the rugs, you know. You
Yeah.
go into those places like the capitals of certain states and you look up and there's a lot of Masonic
Yeah.
art and stuff in there. So something to be concerned about was why it's almost like we are definitely repeating it on purpose because we saw that the agenda worked in the past, so we're going to do that again. But the idea is that the people who stand against it are supposed to learn that last time, if you just, because even across the board, we're talking about in government, we're talking about in spiritual things. If you come into agreement with it, meaning that just doesn't mean that you say, yeah, it's okay, I want it. If you didn't do anything to stop it, you've come into agreement with it. And
That's
in the
right.
spiritual realm, that opens up all types of doors for you. And I feel like that gives like the devil an in on your life. You're making contracts in
Totally.
the spiritual realm that you
Yes.
may or may not want to have involved. And
So true.
it's a lot harder to break those bonds than it is to make those bonds.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
In David Master's new book, Flowing Through Time, Presence, Purpose and the Ultimate Journey into the Eternal Now, David explains, while clocks measure time in exact increments, human beings live time differently. We experience it emotionally, spiritually, we experience it relationally, and neurally. But when we are inspired, focused, or immersed in something greater than ourselves, time flies, disappears, or becomes irrelevant altogether. This mysterious shift is what positive psychology refers to as the flow state. a profound mental, emotional, and even spiritual condition where one becomes absorbed in the present moment. But flow is not just about performance or productivity. It is about presence. And through presence, we enter a different relationship with time itself.
Are you ready to move freely through your life? Read Flowing Through Time, Presence, Purpose and the Ultimate Journey into the Eternal Now. Go to www.escapeyourmindsprison.com.